Saturday. It's April 8th, 2023. Um, I'm just going to run through some housekeeping. Things going on locally for janitorial or however neat and tidy responds to their whatever. Um, Locally, over the last few days, there's something going on. I have contacts in my eyes. Um, and there is some granular particulate that's blowing through the local air. Um, it's not just Queens. I went to Manhattan yesterday. It also happened there. Um, and when I take off my contacts to wash them, it's some, it looks like a thread. I don't know if it's something they're burning or incinerating somewhere, if it's a product, I'm not sure. But there's actual little granular threads floating through the breathable air. And it's been going on now for about 2 weeks. I've also noticed my eyesight changing, and it's frightening. Um, I'm having trouble. Um, at times, my eyes are going blurry. I have to wash my contacts several times a day. This is unusual. This is not the usual schedule of maintenance that I have for myself. Um, it's out of the ordinary. So, yesterday I was walking in Manhattan. I went to the Intrepid. Several things happened yesterday for housekeeping and animal tracking. Um, but more importantly, yesterday, after we went to the Intrepid, um, we went to two kiosks somewhere in the Bowery. I think Lewis called it. I really did not know. Um, I noticed a lot of graffiti. I don't know what it's about. It's it's very sloppy. It looks worrisome. Um, so there's that. And then as I was walking on the streets, some person, we saw a fire inside one of the New York City sanitation receptacles, where they collect the refuse. Um, and I don't know why they were burning it right on the street. Again, it's incendiary, um, but in an open, I mean, again, and not to critique FDNY, not to critique NYPD. I know that these are some form of public, I don't know what, dissidents. I lack of a better term. I'm not in participation with this level of rebellion. I don't know what their nose is out of joint about, but it's, my grandfather used to say, it's better than a punch on the nose. I mean, again, I'm Art Museum Alliance. I have a different walk on earth than the rest of the participants, but I've been withheld from my natural journey, and I'll get to that in a few. So, went here yesterday in exploration of the city. I saw whatever that ad somebody took out, some punch at Prince Andrew. I saw it regards to the storage again. I don't I don't know what to do about, like, if Uncle Duke and Uncle Mark are fighting and some of the employees with some of the purse money decide out to take out these campaigns and ads, and I'm here, and there's I've met one of King George's men, and I've met General George's men. um I really don't know what more needs to be said. At Things have not gone according to my plan. um Last night there was, again, I I mean, I'm trying to chronologically and logically do this, but I'm all over the place. I mean, that's why I go to the Mirror of Aricept for what are the conversations that the Hollywood crew put together. It seems to be more agenda oriented, and campaign specific, but I don't know for whom or for what. Harry Potter's one of them. They mention it. Again, I am Celtic god Lou's son, but I am a number 8. I'm not a number 7. So but I'm an SUN, not an SON. I can't be more clear in English. Um, Again, I know I'm supposed to remain more Meryl Streep in the movie Out of Africa, but there's some issues and strife between who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be maintained and what actually has gone on. And I don't have words for it. Um, so I listen, and then I listen to Dumbledore as though, and let's stay on the Celtic god Lou and his son. Um, I got a call. I went to the Intrepid yesterday. I was on the flight deck, and I also went to the Growler, the USS Growler. I was reading the boards, but Lewis, after so long, wanted to go, so not even able to fully brush up. But again, I have part of the Museum Alliance, so I will be going back to really. But in my best out of Africa impression, um, to the very Texas looking representative, if Landmark still is holding onto a flower of some sort, um, in his mind's eye. Um, I figured out what the Battle of Syracuse, if it was a bird, what that means. Um, there was a lot of people taking photos. Um, I don't know, on these telephone devices. But I returned home. I ran into somebody on the flight deck, took time to speak to me and my son, which was really, really amazing, because it was, I don't even know, again, like, I'm so out of focus. And just to have like a real man and a real professional and a real focus and discipline, have a real conversation with my son, and just to be the God's witness to both of them. Like, I mean, it's so it's so touching, and it's so moving, and it's so what I expect out of humanity. Like, that's the level of care I expect out of humanity. And I I don't think my expectations are so far off the mark. So I thank him with so graciously from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to engage in an actual social conversation with my son, and to explain to him, like, about why the wings fold up, and why some of them look like a bird with the wings back. Like those are technicality conversations that I don't even know how to make that stuff up for my son in Storyteller. And to have such a piece of history like on the flight deck and then take interest in my son, it was a real honor, I have to be honest. Um, and I said to Linda and Lou, and not to be facetious, I'm really not, but to say to him, like, I know I had a cosmic uncle who was in the US Navy, who had the exact same birthday as I was, and I was his angel. I know that I was. And I know that he told his friends about me. But he died early, and I don't have him any longer. And I don't know where his friends are. I don't know anything. It's like he died, and it's like the whole it's like the whole communication went down. I don't know. I I'm just I just don't know. I don't. On the American side, I just don't know. And so there's that. So thank you. And he called himself Jeff. So thank you to Jeff. Um, and then I took Anthony home. Um, and um, I'm in the residence, and all of a sudden I get a call from China. It's a specific, I don't know, you call it Providence in China, I don't know. So it's a specific Providence in China. Again, President's Club's one thing, but then there's this call. Um, and then Lewis takes me somewhere for whatever. It just so happened. I don't know if he knows. I don't know if he's that integrated. I think he's on like an autopilot of like destination with guiding light, and however that works, and technicalities that I'm on this side. So I don't really know the veil when I get to other, but whatever. So he's takes me to this place. It turns out it happens, just so happens to be, with no coordination whatsoever, same reference. But I'm not sitting there through the whole dinner. My dinner didn't come on time. Whatever on technicalities, I'm not complaining about the meal not being. So I went. I had a prior engagement at church, so that's where I went. I skipped dinner. I had sat there with them. There were representatives I noticed in the crowd, unusual representatives, but my animal tracker, being my Fitbit and my phone, show exactly after the phone call from the location where we went locally in same lettered patterns. Might get confusing to nobody ever. And then I went straight to church. So, and for last night was Good Friday. Um, so I did that in somber salinity myself. Um, and then tonight I have a York friend. Um, and again, using the language of the locals gets confusing. Um, and he had told me on Thursday's service that he was in preparation for tonight, which is Saturday, which is the vigil, the great vigil of Easter. Um, and this is like for the first Holy Week I've ever attended. First invitation to a Holy Week, like whatever. Um, so I'm with this specific community, very grateful for having them. Um, and um, Mark mentions that there's a lot of preparation, which I wouldn't have known if he had not had this conversation with me. There was a lot of preparation that was going in. He was actually learning songs in a very specific language, which I was very touched by, and I am very excited this evening to go and attend with this live music. I believe there's going to be more string music, string instruments, and there's going to be other languages sung, um, which I'm looking forward to. Also, on an off note, Lewis pulls up this movie he wants my son Anthony to watch. It had inside of it a very, they said Mexican, so I'm not going to say Spaniard because it was Mexican. It was a Mexican story. It was about a chupacabra. It was about the chupra, and I noticed that the little boy inside the movie was not wearing the Mexican colors as a cape. He was very much wearing India's colors, which I thought very interesting. And I'm like, hmm. And so I'm taping. I'm taping.
Are you eating?
I'm taping a video.
Then we're not making you dinner.
Thank you. So there is that, and then it portrayed what a luchador is, which I didn't know that word either. So that was new learnings for today, looking in the mirror. Are you going to eat or not? So I'm watching Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for this one scene, which I'll just let it play out, and then I'll overlay parlay whatever I need. It almost reminds me at times of looking into the television screen on the side of the glass at the moment, with what the other artist colony ancestors put together, with however they put together these things, and then leaning on the reference as a backdrop to conversations and things that I'm experiencing in the field, not knowing how quantifiable or quantum entanglement is working. Again, Lewis asks me stuff. I've crossed over the veil. He asked me this specifically, and I'll repeat this again, but he asked me specifically this morning his conversation with being delivered to this earth in the 1940s group, his conversation this morning that he wanted to have with me and share with me, and then ask me if he's on the right track, is his group is asking him, does energy have consciousness? And I'm like, well, I know what it means, and I know what's happened to me, like, again, when I crossed over the veil, or when they pulled me through the veil. I'm like, but let me hear where you're at. And so he went through it, and he's speaking of it, but I can tell that he's just speaking of it. He's not speaking through personal experience. When they ask energy consciousness, is energy conscious? For me, the answer is yes. When in the Divergent series Allegiant, when David, to get to David, when they open, I don't know, for lack of a better word, veil, Stargate, and you pass through it, from unrestricted airspace to restricted airspace, only way I could ever figure out a way of explaining how things work differently. When I got through the veil to the restricted side, I've sat next to something I couldn't even put my eyes on because it was so bright in my humanness. But then almost like in the movie Cocoon. It's the only reference I've seen Hollywood do, and where they have the skin and then they have like the Holy Spirit part. And so, did that energy have consciousness? It did. Did it communicate? It had no orifice and vocal cords, so it was not communicating on a level that humans use in their body machines. But then there was almost like a something changed, and then all of a sudden, same vibe and feeling went into human form in like a polymorphic kind of a way. And then it had, I like, again, I have a label for it, but I've also seen that particular human unit who has said that he doesn't use names, and that scene or that restricted airspace moment was when he was next to the man he labeled as Weatherman, and he labeled himself as Father of Time, and I labeled myself as Mother of Nature. Well, the three of us were in a moment. Um, and so, and that was the reference I made the other day. The man looked very much like the Fallout Boy concert piece. Um, and again, it's not the best reference, but it's all I have on this side in the unrestricted airspace area. Um, and so there's that. So I hear Lewis talk about energy. Does energy have consciousness and whatever? And I can just tell that he is in abstract thought mode, but he's not in actual contact, like has made contact. Like, again, who, what?
Back again, Harry? I see that you, like so many before you, have discovered the delights of the mirror of Aricept. I trust by now you realize what it does. Let me give you a clue. The happiest man on earth would look into the mirror and see only himself, exactly as he is.
So then it shows us what we want, whatever we want.
Yes and no. It shows us nothing more or less than the deepest and most desperate desires of our hearts. Now you, Harry, who have never known your family, you see them standing beside you.
No. I very well know that that character is very much who my father has always been, my father Lou. To his SUN, or his daughter. That is the relationship. I very well get if somebody has half a story and hears the words Celtic god Lugh and his son, that somebody might cast the role as a seven, which would be Daniel Radcliffe. I get that. What I am not confused on is my birthing order and the fact that I am Lou's very special flower that had very special cosmic seed in timing and precision of life on this planet. For that, I'm not confused. But I don't want. There's this play that they wrote, and now my son Anthony is in Moana Jr. As I read through, when I read through the lines, and I put myself with no epidermal layer on, just a Holy Spirit reading this through my own life lens, of whatever blood type I am, whatever ABO I am, and knowing I have a GOD letter on file with whoever sent me the letter to begin with. There is a semblance of reality that comes out, that pops out of this, that is quite frightening. Um, Mostly because I don't have all of the intellectual pieces, not that I'm not capable, just that some of them are being handled by departmental whatever that I don't have access to and don't conference with me regularly. Don't know if there's requirements on that. But I'm reading through some of the typecasts that they put in Crypt, and as humans, and also through the filter of Disney, no less. One thesis I wrote, but with real historians guiding me, and then collecting the paper. So back to Celtic god Lu and his son.
But remember this, Harry. This mirror gives us neither knowledge or truth. Men have wasted away in front of it, even gone mad.
I feel the ocean crew. I say they took my sons to the ocean and are raising them amongst strangers. I don't know these men. I don't know these women. And the man they're being raised around and by are not exactly my biggest fans. In fact, my entire life, while I had my children home and did not speak the name of the man who tried murdering me, um, just so I didn't give them a poor image, or I didn't mentally warp my children, but to protect my nest, my seeds, regardless of who they were. Um, I chose to participate in my nest in that fashion, and as a punishment for being such a good human and a good advocate for my children, they were taken and dispersed, and other things were mishandled. Um, and it really, for me, feels more like a kidnapping than anything. That's from a mother's perspective. That's what it feels like.
That is why tomorrow it will be moved to a new home. And I must ask you not to go looking for it again. It does not do to dwell on dreams, Harry, and forget to live.
Again, those words of wisdom and advice work in certain situations, but not for every. Um, there was a JMG, James Mark Glenn. I'm going to pull up the moving of the veil, that the movie Divergent, Allegiant put on, which spelled all E giant. Again, I don't know if that's Emirate like mention or if that's Emperor mention. Yesterday, while I was at the first Holy Week, they mentioned something about King of the Jews, and then they were mentioning something about the Emperor, and this was the first time I'd ever really heard these words in a story format or in a context or in some kind of actionable or like educational attempt at like sharing this. So, um, I found that very interesting, the way that they were using it, the way they were portraying it. Um, and again, today I watched something about Mother Guadalupe along the same lines, but not the exact same as like Mother Mary. I mean, I've heard some Catholics refer to it as Mary in a half shell on the front lawn. Again, that's like local New York's like slangly, like slang. Again, I don't think if it's Langley appropriate, but um, it's tribal. And I'm in the heart of New York where it's like multiple competing tribes and it gets messy at times. But specifically on this Moana, it's he got a part which is scene 3, the village, as Fisher 1. So says you're going to be an amazing chief. I know it. Thanks, Mom. Then it says, I've never seen it this bad. It's been weeks. What's going on here? There's no fish. You know that old adage, like, there's plenty of fish in the sea. Not on this island. Um, and then it says, no fish, no crops. What are we going to do? We'll figure this out. We can rotate the fishing grounds. We have. We'll fish the far side of the island. We tried the whole lagoon. The fish are gone. And then the chief says, have you tried using different bait? And my son's line is, it's not the bait, chief. And then that goes into having to go beyond the reef in the ocean to look for fish. So it's just really as in like on that 70s show in like we arrived in the 70s. We're now as a unit in our 40s and the fishing was like really difficult in like enough fish in the sea. No. It was a small lagoon and then there was movement out of, and then there was no fish. There was like nothing. There was a couple of run-ins. I guess the President's Club sent my way. MVP night with the VIP. There was some trip to Tom's River with one of the local Polish representatives. That was important. That was incredibly important. I guess that was part of the Governor's Club. Like, again, I don't really know. But it seems like there's all of these important run-ins. But then it's like, just what happened to like a reputable suitor or a reputable life partner? I mean, like it's just, it's star 1978. It's star 8378. Nicole Cattaruzza. And this is where I am at the moment. So it's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza, Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.